Well, today is a pretty exciting day. I'm going to start building this layout that I talked about a while back. You can check out that video if you want an explanation of the layout. But I'm going to start building back in this area and along this side here. The reason I'm going to start building in this area is because I'm going to run this backdrop up onto the ceiling here, because this track is really high and you'll be looking up here mostly, and so you're going to see this junction or this intersection of the ceiling and the backdrop. So I figured I would just run this up and curve it onto the ceiling. So to do that, I'm going to cover the entire existing ceiling, which is a textured ceiling. I'm going to cover it with some 1/4-inch drywall so that I can sand the seams and get it smooth without ruining the texturing on the existing ceiling. That way, if I move out, I can just remove those panels and just fill some screw holes. I'm going to run that drywall, that 1/4-inch drywall, all the way down and along this edge here. Back in here, there's a raised platform, so you'll be up looking into this area and not up at the ceiling. So I'm going to put the drywall in here, but I'm going to have to build this piece of the layout because the backdrop on this side wraps around and is attached to this upper level. So let's get started. The very first thing I got to do is I got to build this raised platform in here. Then I'm going to build this area of the layout on the lower level here, which will support the upper level. And then I'll build the benchwork for the lower level, measure up to the ceiling, and cut these pieces exactly to match the ceiling, which will be attached to the ceiling. And basically the back edge of the layout here is going to be hanging from the ceiling, and the front edge is going to be supported on the backdrop of the lower level. So let's go ahead and start building that. Okay, here I'm going to start building the platform, and I'm just going to make it with these two little short walls, much like you frame a wall in a house. So I'm just marking off some studs at 16-inch centers. The only difference is these studs are about 8 inches tall. Sure, it'd be nice if I could work this fast in real life, but the nail gun jams, so I have to shove something in there to get the hammer back. So now I'm going to build a second identical wall, and it'll be spaced 24 inches from this wall, or from the first wall. Okay, now what I'm placing on top here are some 2x6s. This will span across to make the floor nice and stiff. Doing it this way I feel saves some lumber because I'm just making the two outer supporting short walls and then capping it with 2x6s, just like you would a deck on a house. And I'm placing these 2x6s right over the top of those little short 2x4s that I nailed up on the little walls below it. It may seem overkill to build a platform like this, but the potential for this platform to hold a significant amount of weight is quite possible. So you want it nice and solid. Earlier I built this stair foundation here, so I'm just putting it on screwing it on the end. On the end of the little wall here, you see that for the platform that I made, I put a 3/4-inch piece of plywood to stabilize it all. So now I'm using 3/4-inch plywood for the top. And here I'm just marking off those studs so I can nail all the way down. Okay, here I'm going to have to put up some 1/4-inch drywall for the backdrop. And I'm actually putting it on the ceiling here to protect the textured ceiling that's already there. So I'm just marking it off so it's 8 inches from the sidewall. And what I'm standing on there is actually a guitar amplifier, which isn't the best thing to stand on, but it was handy. So this thing I'm building here is going to help me lift up the plywood by myself. Now I have a sheetrock jack, but I loaned it out because I didn't think I was going to need it here, so I just quickly threw together this little contraption to help lift up that 1/4 inch drywall. So once I kind of get this first sheet, and it's the most difficult one because every one will be butted up against this, but once I get this one up, it'll go quite a bit faster here. So I'm just checking a lot of my measurements here. And you can see that those blue pieces of tape all the way along the bottom of the wall there, those are marking stud locations. I also have those in the ceiling marking the trusses. And I'm using this laser level to shoot down the ceiling so I know where the screws are going to go on the 1/4 inch drywall. So once I get that lined up, I can just shoot in the screws all the way across there. I think in that case I missed a spot there, so I'm trying to find the stud there, or the truss in the ceiling, and I'm checking the spot. I guess that's a little bit off, so fix that one quick. Okay, that worked pretty good. Now I gotta move it over and put up the next one. And this one's gonna have a hole cut for the existing light that was up there. I'm gonna use that light box to place a track light up there that will help light up this cove. The rest of the layout will be lit with LEDs under a valance, but this particular area won't have a valance. And you can see that contraption's pretty shaky, but again, I just got to get these little light sheets up here. Once I push it up tight to the wall, it stayed okay. I'm actually using 1 5/8 drywall screws here, so because I'm going through the 5/8 drywall that's already up there. Once again, I'm using that to line up the trusses. To find all those trusses, I use a little trick with a magnet. I put it on a piece of tape, and you'll see me later do it. And I just run it along, and as soon as I get to a screw in the ceiling or in the wall, the tape kind of flips to the wall and sticks the magnet right where the screw is, and it helps me find the exact center of those studs and trusses. So I got to add one little filler piece right here that's going to go over that ledge. And this little filler piece is then going to go down that other wall where those light bulbs are sitting on that ledge. So here we go, I'm putting the last piece up here. And it's kind of a little bit of a pain working over the top of that ledge there. So what I'll do next is then I'm going to put the same 1/4 inch drywall down along the walls, and it'll also be 8 inches down from the ceiling. And I only have to make long pieces on the left side. As they go around the room, there's just going to be short little pieces because at that point the scenery will be quite close to the ceiling. And then I'm going to be using sonotubes cut in 1/4s to make the rounds, and then I 3D printed some strange little shapes to go in all the corners. So here I'm just taking this back apart real quick, and now I can use this lumber for the layout framing. So here I'm just going to throw a board up on the wall at the bottom of where the sheet's going to be, so I can hold it up there by myself. I'd say about 99% of the time I work on the layout by myself, so I have to kind of do all these things. Okay, here you can see a piece of the sonotube cut in a quarter, and I'm just measuring off the exact length, and I'll go run it through the table saw and trim that piece off. I tried cutting those tubes with a knife, and it just does not work. The table saw works much better. So there I put some glue on there, and I'm just stapling it to the drywall to hold it till the glue dries. Also, to help speed up this project here, I've set up this temporary miter saw stand, and then I'm also printing out my drawings with my material list here. And then what I do is I just go through and I cut entire piles and it's number them according to the drawings. So here you can see this is 9-1, and then so this is 9. Corresponds to drawing 9-1, and then this is item 2, which is a 1x2 that's 19¼ inches long. So then what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll cut this entire pile of lumber and take it down, and then I have another drawing that's a plan view with all the dimensions of how to locate all this stuff. So the first piece of the benchwork is up. I decided to do it off camera just so I can get a good start at it and kind of get my bearings straight. You can see it worked out pretty much as planned. I put some black paneling on the end here. There'll be a curtain along the front, black fabric, and that'll just really hide that. That panel on the end really finishes off the end of the layout really nice. But you can see it's pretty high. Where that middle board is right there, that's about hitting me in the chin. So this is the switchback in here. And there really was no good way to do that. It's right in the middle of the upper level and lower level, and without it being, the rest of the layout being too low, that pretty much ends up being at an okay, I'm just gonna call it an okay elevation. But all there is a switchback there, so it shouldn't be too bad. You can see the start of the backdrop, which you saw in the video earlier was coming along. I just did one test piece of the curve up to the ceiling there, which I'm using the 3D printed corner transitions, and then I'm using the sonotubes cut in quarters and glued and stapled up there. And I'll keep working that all the way around, and then also down in these corners here. We're going to come all the way along that upper edge. But I have to end here because the other part of the layout's going to start in this at this spot right here and come across. You can see I built the platform and carpeted it, and you saw that in the video. So here we go. This is kind of how this looking. I did mark up this a lot, but I just painted most of this black, so I'll come up and fill all these nail holes and finish off that corner, and then I'll just touch up the black. But this actually worked out really, really nice. I'm pretty happy with this. It wraps around that corner so your toes go underneath the layout and they don't hang off the edge of the platform. And you can see where the upper level is going to be right up there. I did lower this platform 2 inches, which made these 9-inch steps, which is slightly a little high, but it actually feels okay. By making the platform 18 inches instead of the planned 20 inches, I only had to have 1 step rather than 2 steps up there. And it took a lot less space, and the platform comes farther down the layout, so there's less risk of the chance of stepping off onto that 1 step. I did have to lower the benchwork up here 2 inches, of course, otherwise that would have been really way too high. So let's go ahead and finish the rest of this piece of benchwork here. It's pretty standard construction from this point on, and the upper level will be a little bit more challenging, but we'll get to that in a little bit. One of the things I have to do here on the upper level is it has to be attached to the ceiling to support the back edge. So I need to find the ceiling trusses. And the way I started in this area was I found the light that was hanging on the other side, and I figured out, you can see the blue tape marks where the side of the truss is. And then I started measuring away from it in what are common intervals, 16, 18, 20, 24. And it happened to be that the interval was 20 inches. And so how I found it is that I took a neodymium magnet, stuck it on a piece of tape, and started at 16, and I would just drag it down drag it down the ceiling. And if it didn't stick to anything, I moved over 2 more inches and dragged it down. And then it didn't stick to anything. And then eventually I got into this area. And as I dragged it down here, it stuck to a screw. And that's how I knew exactly where the trusses were. Now I did kind of tap along, and I knew that it was roughly about in this area, but by finding the screw, I knew exactly where it was. And then I would just work the same way down here, eventually finding all of the trusses up here. So now I know where I can screw into. I'll use a laser level and I'll shoot a line down there and get that top edge of the backdrop screwed up to the ceiling. Well, here's where I ended up after the first weekend of construction. I got this whole area done. That light that's hanging there had to be taken down to get the backdrop up there. That light was originally placed for a different layout plan I had, and then I changed my mind, and so I'll have to make an adjustment there. Come down here. I didn't get as far as I thought. I was hoping to get all these corners in here, but I did get this started here anyways, because now I can get that. I had to build all this to get this sheet up here so I could run the corner round down here. Then when that's all done, I'm gonna actually glue, or I'm gonna scratch this up real good because that's got like a waxy coating on it. I'm gonna glue some screen on the front of that there, and then I'll just coat this whole thing with joint compound. It should hold pretty good. That's just a backing support, so I'm not too worried about it being not that strong, but it actually is really, really strong. These tubes are really thick. I actually cut those in the table saw. So this is the area here that'll be the switchback and runaround. And I got the backdrop in, and you can see I've got the bottom of the upper level covered with white painted plywood. And then if we come around here, I put a piece of drywall on the end. I'm going to actually drywall all the way down the top of that. Still considering if I might drywall the fascias too. I really like working with drywall more than masonite. In here you can see how the platform's working out. We come down here, this will be a mine up here. Got to get some lighting in there, but I got the backdrops all up, so that's working out well.